Stay tuned. Coming up, we explore how we create habits. But first, let's hear from our sponsor, Midwest Fire. Midwest Fire, a factory direct manufacturer. That means no middleman. You work directly with the good folks right at their factory in Laverne, Minnesota. If you want to see just how easy it is to design your own Midwest Fire truck, check out the Create a Spec tool on their website. To get started, go to MidwestFire.com and click on the Create a Spec tab at the top of the homepage. Hello and welcome to the Situational Awareness Matters Show, episode 353. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple. We want to help you see the bad things coming in time to prevent bad outcomes. Today's feature segment is sponsored by Gassaway Virtual Training. There are 33 online training programs for you to choose from. Some of the programs are live events presented virtually and that include question and answer and dialogue, and some of them are pre-recorded programs. To learn more, visit SAMatters.com website and click on the Virtual Training tab. All right, let's jump into today's feature segment as we explore how we create habits. Perhaps you've heard it said that we are creatures of habit. The more we do something over and over again, the more likely that behavior will be turned into a habit. But what happens in the mystical world of the brain when behaviors become habits? Is your behavior under stress predictable, rational, understandable? The answers to this can be unsettling. We have good and bad news. We all have habits. On an emergency scene, good habits can serve to save your life, and bad habits can result in tragic consequences. So it stands to reason that you would want to have the good habits and avoid the bad habits, right? But what happens when you form bad habits and aren't aware of it? Can this happen? You bet it can. I see it all the time. Fundamentally, your habits are formed through repetition and learning. Practicing something a lot, and you can learn to do that task automatically. Becomes a habit. When this happens, you won't even be thinking about what you're doing. You'll just be able to do it because it's so programmed to do it automatically. It just becomes routine performance. The ability to perform high-risk, high-consequence tasks properly the first time is at the core of why responders train so often. There may only be one chance to get it right. Does repetition really make that much difference? In a word, absolutely. It makes a huge difference. In my situational awareness programs, I conduct an exercise that demonstrates how ridiculously important it is to form good habits and how habits impact performance. The exercises show how performance is improved by repetition that results in memorization of a cognitive skill. But what about a physical task that's being performed? Are the lessons the same? Yes, they are. Muscles can learn to automatically perform as well as the neurons can learn a cognitive script like data memorization. Have you ever driven your car somewhere while you were distracted? Maybe you were actively engaged in a conversation with someone else in the vehicle, or perhaps you just had something weighing heavily on your mind. Whatever the cause, your entire attention wasn't on the act of driving, yet you were still able to arrive at your destination without getting into an accident. It's entirely possible that you may have no recall of some or most of the trip. How can you drive a vehicle with such little conscious effort? The answer in part lays in the power of learned scripts, routines, habits that are formed from repetition of tasks. You drive a vehicle so often you don't even have to think about what your right foot is supposed to do when you come to a traffic light, or what you're supposed to do when the light changes from red to green or green to yellow. The response is automatic. Your foot leaves the gas pedal and depresses the brake pedal, and you come to a stop. You do this so automatically that you don't even give much thought to the amazing brain functions that are facilitating this kind of automatic performance. You are a creature of habit under the best of conditions. And add stress, and you become a slave to your habits. Your performance will become automatic, scripted performance of learned behaviors that you may have learned years earlier. Responders who do dumb things, by some people's words, at emergency scenes aren't doing dumb things on purpose. Most of the time, their performance is a reflection of their training, the habits that have been performed over time. One of my signature stories in my programs is about a police officer who made a near-fatal decision without even realizing what he was doing. The story was shared with me by a police officer doing a program I did in Colorado. This officer told me that he'd seen a video of this incident during a class that he was taking. I've tried unsuccessfully to find the video, so I just have to share the account with you verbally. If you know of this video that's out there, please contact me. Here's the story. An assailant came into a Quick Mart to rob it. While he was robbing it, a marked police car pulled up out front. The assailant saw the police car and fled to the back of the store. Neither of the police officers knew that the store was being robbed. They come into the store and they split up. One of them went over to where the coffee was and poured himself a cup of coffee, and the other one was going to the back of the store to get a soda. The officer was going to the back of the store, went to the back, made the turn, and he was face to face with the assailant, who pointed the gun in the face of the officer. This officer was in a high-risk, high-consequence decision-making environment. And what the officer did next, based on his training, was amazing. The officer, reached out and snatched that gun right out of the assailant's hands so fast that the assailant didn't even know what happened. He literally was standing there stunned. And what the officer did next describes all explanation. The officer then handed him the gun back, held his hands up as if to say, "You did pretty good, but we're going to have a do-over. I'm going to give you another chance." Now, the assailant was stunned. He didn't know what was going on, and you could see, as it was told to me, the confusion on his face. In the meantime, the other officer had been alerted by the store clerk of the robber in the back of the store, and he was coming down an aisle that was behind the assailant. So he was able to subdue the assailant before he was able to gather his thoughts back and harm the other officer. They arrested the suspect, put him in the police car, went back in, asked the clerk if it was videotape that they had of this of the robbery. They did, so they got the videotape. They took it down, submitted it into evidence, and when the videotape was being watched, this officer's encounter with the suspect was caught on the videotape. Now, if other officers were to watch this tape, what do you think they might say or think about the first officer? They might say things like, "You're an idiot. What were you doing? How could you think that was a good idea?" And they might pass all kinds of judgment, because what they don't realize is that officer, and them too, were trained to do that. He was nothing but a creature of habit under stress. Let's wind back to the officer's training. When they were going through their tactical training, learning how to disarm somebody who's got a gun, a knife, a chain, a broken bottle, they learn all these different tactical maneuvers. One of them was disarming somebody who has a gun. So in the training scenario, you'd have one officer with the weapon playing the role of the bad person, and the other officer playing the role of the officer who's being confronted. And they teach him the technique, and the officer will, in slow motion, reach out, take the weapon off of him in slow motion, and then give it back. And then they'll do it again faster and give it back. And do it again faster and give it back. And do it again real-time speed and give it back to practice. So what this officer's cognitive script said was the muscle movement of how to do these tasks played out by habit. Repetition created the habit. And then what the script in his head said, based on the tacit stored knowledge, was give the gun back and try the task again. And without any conscious thought, that script played, and that's exactly what the officer did. In this scenario, the officer behaved in a very unexpected way. Some would even say his behavior was bizarre or dumb. The police officer did not perform the takedown and handcuff maneuver, which is what you might expect him to do. It's rational instead to think that he would take him down after he disarmed him and handcuffed him. But instead, the police officer handed the gun back to the assailant and put his hands back up in the air as if to say, let's do it again. That's not rational. In fact, you might say that's irrational. But there's an explanation. And we know that the officer was trained to fail. During his defensive tactics class, the script ended when he took the gun off the person and handed it back. Once they handed it back, they reset the scenario and started all over again. And over again, they practiced a flawed routine that did not include the takedown and the handcuff. All the while, this created a habit. If not for the officer's partner intervening, it might have cost him his life. During the program, I share with the attendees the brain science behind habit formation and the dangerous mistakes that can be made in the training of responders. Mistakes that seem innocent, yet can have catastrophic outcomes. You are a slave to your habits under stress, and you can be trained to fail as much as you are trained to succeed. Practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent. Design and conduct training to ensure performance of skills mirrors the desired performance at an emergency scene. If you take shortcuts in training, those shortcuts become your automatic skill performance under stress. Do not think for one moment that you can use logic to talk yourself out of doing something differently when the pressure is on. In other words, you don't train one way and then use logic in another scenario. If this were the real emergency, you might want to do it differently than the way you trained. That's flawed logic. In fact, under stress, your logical brain isn't even functioning very well. We refer to our habits and our routines. That's the lesson that has been made abundantly clear in numerous articles that I've written on the Essay Matters blog. Since 2007, Essay Matters instructors have helped more than 1,200 organizations and 87,000 individuals improve high-risk decision-making, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, highway workers, aviation workers, oil refinery operators, and more. If you or someone you care about works in a high-stress, high-consequence, decision-making environment, then we are here to help to improve their safety and survival and to help them accomplish the most important mission of all, and that's to go home to the ones who love them. Since the start of the pandemic, I've had some amazing opportunities to present my programs on a virtual platform to groups ranging in size from 6 to 400, with recorded playbacks being viewed over 22,000 times. Here's hopeful that the new year and the introduction of the COVID vaccine will reduce the number of cases and return us back to some form of normalcy for live in-person training. As you will see from the list of upcoming events, things are looking up. On January 6th, I'll be facilitating the Minnesota Virtual Training Series program featuring Steve Przborowski talking about courage under fire leadership. January 13th, I'll be presenting Flawed Situational Awareness Lightning Round program for the International Association of Fire Chiefs Volunteer and Combination Officers Section Virtual Symposium in the Sun. On January 18th, I'll be facilitating the Minnesota Virtual Training Series program featuring Eddie Buchanan talking about leading with attitude. On January 19th, I'll be presenting a virtual situational awareness barriers program for the Connecticut OSHA. On January 20th, I'll be presenting a virtual flawed situational awareness program for the Maritime Fire Chiefs Association. On January 21, I'll be presenting a live, in-person, hopefully, situational awareness program for the Utah Fire Chiefs Association in Salt Lake City. On February 2nd, I'll be facilitating the Minnesota Virtual Training Series program, this time featuring Kit Welchland talking about how to deal with difficult people. February 6th and 7th, I'll be presenting 3 live in-person situational awareness programs at the Missouri Winter Fire School in Columbia, Missouri. On February 8 and 10, presenting 3 live situational awareness programs for the Spring Fire Department in Spring, Texas. February 17th, I'll be facilitating the Minnesota Virtual Training Series, this time featuring Dr. Chad Weinstein, talking about fire service leadership from the inside out. Thank you to the organizations that have allowed me to offer your members virtual training, and a special thanks to the 46 organizations who've postponed trainings in 2020 and are patiently waiting to be rescheduled. If you're interested in hosting a virtual program or a live event, just click the Contact Us tab at the top of the SA Matters homepage, and I'll give you a call. Finally, remember to check the show notes for how to subscribe to our newsletter and how to follow us on social media. There we share ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. Well, that's it. Episode 353 of the Situational Awareness Matters show is complete. Thank you to our platinum sponsor, Midwest Fire. Thank you to our feature segment sponsor, Gasaway Virtual Training. And thank you to our associate sponsor, Chief Miller. And most importantly, thank you, the listeners and viewers of this show, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters show with Dr. Richard Gasaway. If you're interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit his website, samatters.com. If you're interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for a program, or if you would like to be a guest on his show, click the Contact Us tab at the top of the homepage.